The glass shattered across the ballroom floor and the music died mid-note. My son slapped me in the face at his wedding. His hand hung in the air, and his voice cut through the silence. "Give me your house keys, now." If a stranger had tried that, I'd have called security. But it was Tyler, in a spotless tux, on his own wedding night, 30 minutes from that slap. A vault opened, a judge spoke, and I became my son's biggest creditor. You think keys equal ownership? Wrong. If your family ever pushed for your home, comment boundary right now. Stay with me. I'll show the land trust, the receipts, and the choice I gave him. Plan A, garnish 25%. Or Plan B, earn forgiveness. Timer's on. When it hits 0, everything flips in this revenge story. My name is Betty. I'm 68. I've spent years making myself small so other people could feel big. I stock roses at a neighborhood florist, wear discount cardigans, and drive a 10-year-old sedan that smells like carnations in winter. People assume that means harmless. Tyler and his bride, Paige, built a whole plan on that assumption. "A woman your age doesn't need so much space," Paige said last month, smiling like a switchblade. They didn't ask. Tonight they decided to take... When Tyler's palm cracked my cheek, my glasses skated over marble and stopped under a tower of champagne. One clink. 130 heads turned. The band missed a beat. Paige stepped forward, lashes perfect, whispering just loud enough. She gets confused. "We'll hold the keys." She said it like a kindness. It felt like a sentence. I knelt for my lenses and found my breath instead. The stone was cold. My face was fire. Old habits crowded in. Apologize. Smooth it over. Don't make waves. Those habits save holidays and break spines. I stood up without my glasses and finally saw clearly. I saw the card box swollen with envelopes. I saw Tyler's jaw lock the way his father's used to when he wanted something expensive and immediate. I saw the future they'd drafted for me. A smaller room, a smaller life, supervised smiles, and borrowed freedom. "Give me the keys," Tyler said again, softer now, noticing the cameras lifting at every table. "Mom, don't make a scene." The scene was already made. What he didn't know, and what I'm about to tell you, is how fast a revenge story becomes a recovery story. In 30 minutes, a vault will open. In 30 minutes, a judge will read words heavier than a slap. In 30 minutes, I'll stop protecting the people who keep hurting me. I reached into my purse, touched cool metal, and closed my fingers, but not for him. "If you still want my keys," I said, "you'll need more than a crowd. And you should listen closely, because this is where everything you assumed goes wrong horribly." I left the ballroom without my glasses and a cheek beating like a drum. I kept my hand in my purse so it looked like I was hunting for keys. I was holding them hostage for 30 minutes, the time I needed to turn humiliation into leverage. People ask if I can forgive a son for crossing the line. I don't know. Forgiveness is a door I can't find, but I can show you the hallway that led to that slap. The first knock was small. 3 months ago, an appraiser happened to be in my building. He rang my bell, said he was measuring units for market research. Paige hovered behind him. "He can tell you what your place is worth," she said. I told them I wasn't selling. He nodded and measured the windows anyway. Then the emails began. "For your safety. Important health documents. Let us help." The attachments were power of attorney forms. Tyler called it convenience. "Mom, if we're going to help with bills, we need the paperwork. It's normal." Normal for who? Not for a woman who can read a bank statement and set her passwords. They framed it like love. A woman your age shouldn't carry so much responsibility. I wanted to believe my kid was clumsy with concern. I said yes to small things. A spare key for emergencies. a medication list for the fridge, a peek at my budget so they could optimize. That word should have sent me running. Optimize who? For what? 2 weeks before the wedding. My phone buzzed. HELOC inquiry received. Please confirm. I hadn't requested a home equity line. I never would. I called my bank. The rep said, Mrs. West, a relative asked about options given your circumstance. My circumstance. I hauled buckets that morning. That same week, a brochure slid into my mailbox. Sunset Grove, Luxury Senior Living. I counted how many times they said freedom while describing schedules. Paige arrived with muffins and a smile like a contract. Just options, she said, tapping an apartment layout. You'd be surrounded by friends. Tyler and I could use your apartment for a year while we shop. Here's the part that stings. For 36 months, I've been transferring money to keep Tyler afloat, $4,200 a month. Every month. Totals, $45,000 rent, $41,000 cards, $17,000 car hour insurance, $48,200 miscellaneous, $151,200. I told myself I was protecting him from drowning. Turns out I was building a dock for a ship that didn't plan to learn to swim. Why didn't I stop sooner? Because mothers mistake endurance for love. We hold the beam and pray the roof will stop sagging. Some roofs are crooked by design. Tyler used to call and ask about my day. Lately, he called to ask about my house. How much are utilities? Do you keep the thermostat that high? Do you ever get confused with online banking? He turned concern into a spreadsheet. Paige played harmony. I just worry, she'd say, squeezing my arm. She started introducing me as Betty. She's independent for her age. For her age. Some of you said, maybe he panicked. I wanted that to be true. I tried on that excuse like a coat. It didn't fit. Fear doesn't file paperwork behind your back. Love doesn't measure your living room while you're in the shower. Love doesn't ask for your keys on a wedding night. The night before the wedding, they staged a family talk. Paige's parents came. Tyler brought a folder. He spoke softly about next steps. Paige laid out the POA forms like napkins. Her father asked whether my building allowed immediate possession upon transfer. I asked, transfer to who? He switched to grab bars and fall risks. I poured coffee I didn't drink and watched a future they designed try to land on me like a net. Maybe you've sat at a table like that. Smiles fixed, voices reasonable, hands moving your life like chess pieces. If you have, write check so I know I'm not alone. I didn't sign. I walked them to the door and locked it. My hands shook for 10 minutes. After the shaking stopped, something else started. Not anger, more like a motor turning over. So when Tyler's palm met my face in that ballroom, the motor finally caught. The appraiser wasn't random. The emails weren't kindness. The HELOC wasn't a mistake. By the time I reached the hallway, I knew something else. 30 minutes was enough time to stop pretending. If you're still here, stay. The next part is where I stop being careful. It's where a revenge story becomes a recovery story. And if you've ever made that switch from being somebody's mother to being your guardian, tell me how you did it. I'm listening. And someone who needs your courage is too. I drove to the bank before sunrise with a paper towel pressed to my cheek and a thermos of coffee I forgot to sip. I didn't sleep. Not from pain, though the sting came back every time I breathed, but because I finally had clarity. 30 minutes of humiliation at that wedding bought me a lifetime of honesty with myself. I pulled into the empty lot and sat there, hands on the wheel, rehearsing the words I'd avoided for months. Stop protecting people who hurt you. The branch manager, a woman who knew my first name and the exact week I buy poinsettias, unlocked the door early when she saw my face. "Betty, are you okay?" she asked in that careful voice banks use when something might turn into paperwork. "I will be," I said. "I need the safe deposit box." Inside, the bank was still waking up, printers warming, lights too bright, the steel smell of the vault floating in the hallway. I signed the card, slid my key into the cylinder, and heard the click that split my life in half before I acted and after. The manager carried the long drawer to a small room and left me alone. I closed the door, set my purse on the chair, and lifted the lid. I had packed that box like a fire escape, things you hope you never need, arranged so you can grab them blind. On top sat 3 red folders with labels I'd typed during a different kind of worry: trust, property, assignment, debt, living, estate. My hand stopped shaking as soon as I touched paper. That's the thing about receipts. They make your spine remember it has a job. I opened the trust folder first. 6 months ago, when Tyler started optimizing my life, I moved my condo into a land trust on my lawyer's advice. The trustee is the bank. The beneficiary is the Aurora Senior Fund, a charitable trust I formed with my maiden name long before Paige learned to say downsizing like a prayer. It sounds fancy, but here's the plain English part. I wish someone had told me at 50. Keys open doors, not deeds. You can hold metal to my lock all day and never touch title. The trust says who owns the property, not my son, not his new wife, not anyone I haven't named. I felt my jaw loosen for the first time since the slap. I had been carrying this secret like a life raft, afraid to inflate it in front of my child, afraid it would look like a dare instead of a boundary. If you've ever kept protection quiet because you feared the fight that truth would bring, write quiet below so I know I'm not the only one. The second folder was the one that made my pulse slow to a different drum. Assignment. Debt. 2 weeks before the wedding, after that HELOC alert hit my phone, I called a retired attorney from church, Mrs. Ellis, and told her I needed a lever that didn't rely on Tyler having a conscience. She connected me with a small firm that buys defaulted consumer debt for pennies. I didn't love the industry. I still don't. But I learned something I wish I never had to learn. If your son insists on treating family like business, you can answer in the only language he respects. We purchased 70% of Tyler's outstanding balances from 2 agencies at an 18% discount. Translation: instead of begging my grown child to act right, I became the one person he legally had to answer to. My name, through the fund, is the creditor of record. If he continues down the same road, I have the lawful right to collect. If he tries to fix it, I have the lawful right to forgive. There was a time that sentence would have broken me. That morning, it steadied me. Power with terms beats love without boundaries. In the third folder were my living trust and pour-over will, ready for an update I'd postponed because I still believed Tyler would remember who raised him. I laid all 3 folders side by side like a map, where the house lives, where the debt lives, where my legacy lives. Paige wanted my keys. Tyler wanted my silence. My documents wanted me to stop pretending either desire was love. I took pictures of the first page of each file with timestamps visible, my new habit after the first misunderstanding about what I had or hadn't said. Then I called Missy Ellis. She answered on the second ring with coffee in her voice. "Morning, Betty." "It's time," I said. She listened, patient, while I relayed last night's scene. The slap, the whisper about confusion, the demand for keys in front of 130 witnesses, and a cake that cost more than my first car. "You have the trust certificate," she asked. In my hand. And the assignment paperwork? Signed, stamped, recorded. Good. We'll file an affidavit regarding the assault. We'll request security footage from the hotel and any phones that caught it. Then we'll set a hearing in probate to address the guardianship insinuations, and you'll put the trust on the record. Do you want a protective order? I thought about my son's hand in the air and my own hand wrapped around cold keys that no longer meant what he thought they meant. I want a boundary, not a war. If he chooses war, I won't be the one who started it. We'll ask for no contact unless it's through counsel, she said. Also, call the venue about the guarantee. Already on my list. I hung up and took a slow breath. Then I did the softest, most violent thing I've ever done. I canceled the wedding guarantee. 59 seconds on hold, 2 transfers, 1 manager who knew my voice from previous charity events. I told him there had been a material change in circumstances. I sent the letter while we spoke. He confirmed receipt and said the remaining balance would be due immediately by the contracting parties. The words sounded like ice sliding off a roof. It wasn't vengeance. It was refusing to keep paying people to hurt me. Some of you will say that's petty. Maybe. But if you've ever financed your own disrespect, you understand exactly why I press send. Type stop if you've ever reached that line and finally drawn it. Next, I walked to the mirror in the bank's tiny restroom and took a photo of my cheek. Nothing dramatic, just a clean record. Red bloom, fingerprint edges, the line where my glasses had been. Evidence is not emotion, it's a trail. I added the picture to the affidavit Mrs. Ellis would file, and I texted a copy to myself and printed one on the lobby machine because paper has a stubborn dignity. Screens don't. On my way out, the branch manager touched my elbow. Do you need us to flag your accounts against new credit inquiries? Yes, I said. And could you print the log showing last week's HELOC questions? I'll need the timestamps. She nodded. Do you want me to note that the contact was a relative? Note that I did not authorize any information to be shared beyond public disclosures, I said, hearing my own voice take on Mrs. Ellis's cadence. I used to worry sounding firm would make me lonely. Turns out sounding small did that faster. Back in the car, the morning had turned gold on the edges of the strip mall across the street. I set the folders on the passenger seat and drove to my building, in the lobby. I stopped at the HOA office to request hallway camera clips from the day the appraiser happened by the board president, a retired teacher who collects ceramic owls and notices everything, frowned at the bruise and promised the footage. We thought that man seemed in a hurry, she said. He measured without permission. You file a complaint and we'll back it. I will, I said. Thank you for seeing me. I meant the bruise. I also meant the part of me that had been shrinking for 3 years. Upstairs. I made tea I didn't drink, sat at my dining table, and wrote out a list by hand because pens and kitchens have a way of telling the truth that apps can't. Trust certificate ready for court. Assignment of debt ready for court. Affidavit plus photo plus witness list. Banquet staff banned. Cousin with the camera. Venue guarantee cancellation confirmed. Bank logs printed. HOA footage requested. Update living trust and pour over will after hearing. Consider no contact through counsel only. I wrote one more line because I needed to see it in ink. Love without boundaries is permission. When you raise a child alone, you build your life like a house out of leftovers, time scraps, paycheck corners, patience purchased with sleep. You promise yourself the house will hold when he grows tall enough to touch the ceiling. You don't plan for the day he tries to sell the roof. But here we are, if you're still with me. Tell me something honest. When did you learn to separate forgiving from forgetting? Drop the word guard if you've put a gate around your heart and kept the key. I am not asking you to punish your people. I'm asking if you ever stopped paying the bill for their lessons. At 10, my son brought home crayon drawings and teacher notes about kindness. At 32, he brought me POA forms and a plan to move me like furniture. I can hold both pictures in my hands without tearing either. That's motherhood. That's also why I needed paper more than feelings today. The judge will read documents, not memories. Before noon, Mrs. Ellis texted me a time for the probate calendar. We would ask the court to note my capacity, deny any guardianship implication, and accept the trust into the record. We would present the assignment only if necessary, not as a threat, but as a boundary with teeth. She warned me I might shake when I spoke. Shaking is fine, she wrote. So is crying. What matters is that you stop negotiating with fantasy. I sat very still after that and let her words land. The fantasy wasn't that my son loved me. He does, in the sideways way people love when they're drowning and everything looks like a float. The fantasy was that I could keep throwing him rope without going under myself. I closed the folders, slid them back into the box for an hour, and made a sandwich I barely tasted. Then I called the hotel again and asked for security. I requested that any guest videos submitted be preserved, and I gave them Mrs. Ellis's email. I left messages for the band leader and the florist, people who see everything and carry cameras. Then I called my neighbor, Joseph, and told him I would be okay. Not because I felt okay, but because I was acting like a woman who planned to be. My phone lit up twice with unknown numbers. I let both go to voicemail. One was Paige, voice tight, saying she hoped I would reconsider for family harmony. The other was Tyler, strangling the word mom until it sounded like an obligation. I pressed, save. Evidence is not emotion. It's a trail. The afternoon slipped into that quiet when the mail truck leaves and the dog 3 doors down is finally done announcing the world. I moved the kettle to the back burner, turned off the light over the sink, and stood at the window where I keep my herbs. The basil looked tired. I pinched off the flowers and breathed in the green. Then I picked up my purse, checked the folders one more time, and set out for the courthouse like a person walking into her own name. If you've ever had to build a backbone out of paper and signatures, I see you. If you're building one now, keep going. This isn't a revenge story to me anymore. It's a recovery story with rules. Tomorrow I'll tell you what happened when the judge read my life out loud, and how my son learned the difference between keys and ownership, love and access, apology and accountability. Stay if you can. I'm not finished being honest yet. I walked into probate court with the red folders in my tote and the taste of metal behind my teeth. The place smelled like toner and old air. Mrs. Ellis met me at security with coffee and eyes that had seen every version of family grief. "Breathe from your feet," she whispered. I did. The shaking kept time. Tyler waited in a navy suit he didn't quite own with his shoulders. Paige stood beside him, calm the way people are when they believe paper will fight for them. Her parents sat 2 rows back with tabs. Their lawyer, young, confident, shoes too shiny, kept glancing at me like I was a line item. The clerk called our case, and we walked up beneath a sky that felt like it might split. The judge was a woman with a neat braid and patient hands. She scanned the file. "We're here on a prospective guardianship and related concerns. Appearances?" Laura Ellis for Miss Betty West. Mrs. Ellis said, "Will address capacity, property structure, and a pattern of coercive conduct culminating in a public assault." The man with the shiny shoes stood. David Larkin for Mr. Tyler West and Mrs. Paige West. We're here out of concern for Missy West's safety and financial vulnerability. Safety. Vulnerability. Words that sprout fangs when they're said by people who want your keys. Capacity first. The judge said. Mrs. Ellis handed up our affidavit with the photo of my cheek. The bruise looked almost polite on the monitor. The red bloom, the thin line from my glasses, my mouth surprised and stubborn. The judge studied it and nodded. Acknowledged. Mr. Larkin cleared his throat. It was a misunderstanding at an emotional event. My clients have been trying for months to help Miss West manage her affairs. Help, like a hand on your back that steers you toward the cliff and calls itself support. Next, the judge said. Mrs. Ellis slid the trust certificate forward. 6 months ago, my client moved her condo into a land trust. Trustee, First Harbor Bank. Beneficiary, Aurora Senior Fund. Practical effect, keys open doors, not deeds. Only the trustee can convey or encumber. Tyler's jaw locked with nowhere to send the pressure. Paige did the math of a plan that forgot paperwork. The judge accepted the certificate. Any petition equating access with control would be misguided. Mr. Larkin tried to pivot. Our concern isn't just the condo. Ms. West canceled a guarantee for the wedding, suggesting instability. Mrs. Ellis held up a page. Cancellation letter, time-stamped, citing a material change. She has the right to stop underwriting an event where she was assaulted. Any claim lies with the contracting parties. The judge set the letter on the stack. Do you have anything concrete on capacity of counsel? He chose the kind of vague that sounds like concern until you write it down. She's been forgetful. I stood. I stock roses 3 days a week. I balance my books. I moved my home into a trust before your client learned to pronounce fiduciary. I'm not confused. I'm done. Silence pulled the air thinner. The judge tapped her pen. The court finds no basis for guardianship. Capacity is established. I could have gone home and finally slept, but there was one more truth to name. Mrs. Ellis touched my elbow. Our cue. Pattern? She said. Emails with draft power of attorney forms. An unauthorized HELOC inquiry. HOA footage of an appraiser measuring without permission. For 36 months, Miss Beam. West transferred to Mr. West $151,200. Mr. Larkin started to object, then stopped when the judge raised a palm. Where is this going? Ms. Ellis? Mrs. Ellis placed the second red folder on the podium. Assignment of debt, 2 weeks ago, through the Aurora Senior Fund. Ms. West purchased 70% of Mr. West's accounts from 2 agencies at an 18% discount. The fund is now the creditor of record. We aren't threatening. We're offering structure. Tyler's mouth opened, then closed. Paige's eyes went calculation flat, like a dealer counting chips after the table has gone quiet. Her parents froze the way people freeze when a plan meets a wall it didn't map. Explain, the judge said. Plan A is enforcement. Mrs. Ellis said, judgment, wage garnishment, up to 25%, and liens as appropriate. Plan B is restorative. The fund will forgive 100% of the assigned balances if Mr. West completes within 120 days the following. 1. A sworn affidavit acknowledging the assault and the prior attempt to obtain control of Ms. West's affairs. 2. 500 hours of community service at the Aurora Senior Fund. 3. A 12-week financial literacy course. 4. A public video apology by Mrs. Paige West for the slap and the confusion narrative. 5. No contact for 6 months except through counsel. 6. Withdrawal of any HELOC or guardianship efforts and written retractions sent to the bank and family. Failure to complete triggers. Automatic reversion to Plan A. The room didn't gasp. It softened. People inhaled like a door had opened and the pressure changed. Mr. Larkin spread his hands. Your Honor, this borders on coercion. It borders on boundaries. Mrs. Ellis said, clarity on paper after years of confusion off it. The judge's patience looked like steel in flannel. Your client implied incapacity and sought control. Ms. West responds with facts and lawful conditions. I won't referee conscience. I'll issue orders where the law is plain. She turned to me. Ms. West, is this what you want? I thought of Tyler's kindergarten star for sharing and the tuxedoed hand that asked for my keys after striking my face. I thought of 36 payments that taught him nothing about boats. I thought of the vault click. Yes, Your Honor. I want to stop paying for lessons that aren't being learned. Tyler finally spoke. Mom, please don't. You're making me look like... I'm not making you look like anything, I said. I'm making the truth visible. Paige tried harmony. We just want what's best for family harmony. Family harmony does not begin with a slap or end with a deed, the judge said. Here is the order. Her voice slowed to the pace of record. Ms. West is competent. Any guardianship petition on this record is denied in advance. The trust certificate is accepted and filed. A no-contact provision is ordered for 6 months except through counsel. The wedding guarantee cancellation is acknowledged. Any financial responsibility for that event rests with the contracting parties other than Miss West. The court notes the parties' structured option and sets a review in 120 days. The gavel clicked. Final enough. Tyler sagged as if someone had let air out of him. For a second, he looked like my boy again. Eyes wet, mouth soft with the shock of consequence. Then the old shield rose. He half stood. His lawyer pressed his sleeve and he sat back down. Paige's parents stared at their color tabs as if a new divider labeled undo might appear. Paige touched her necklace. 500 hours? She whispered. A public apology. Mrs. Ellis packed our exhibits with the care of folding a flag. Thank you, Your Honor, she said. The judge looked at me. Take care of yourself, Ms. West, and take care of your documents. Mr. Larkin approached with open palms. Perhaps we can discuss revising the hours. The terms are generous, I heard Mrs. Ellis say. He's being offered freedom at the price of accountability. Tyler stepped around him. Mom, 500 hours is insane. I have a job. So do the people who will sign your timesheets. I said, you also have a class and an apology that tells the truth. We rode the elevator in a small, quiet line, me and Mrs. Ellis, then the lawyer, then the couple who thought marriage came with keys to places they didn't build. In the glass, I saw us arranged like a lesson. Boundaries first. Forgiveness, if earned. If you're still with me, tell me honestly, which plan would you choose for your own child? A for enforcement. B for forgiveness with terms. There isn't a perfect answer, only one you can live with at night. Be honest, I can take the truth. Others here need it too. We drove back to my place with the radio off. At a red light, my phone buzzed. A ballroom clip of my glasses skidding and the word keys floating like a dare, followed by a stranger's text. For what it's worth, you did the right thing. Upstairs. I slid the order into the red folders and set them on the shelf above my stove where I keep flour and fear. I made tea I would actually drink. I wrote the review date on a sticky note and tucked it inside the sugar cabinet. Then I took one last photo of my face. The bruise had started to turn. Bodies learn. So do people, when the world insists. That night I slept. In the morning, there was a voicemail from Tyler. The first half sounded like bargaining, the second like a boy apologizing to a door. I saved it. Evidence is not emotion. It's a trail. Forgiveness is not fantasy either. It's a door that opens when the work is done. I don't know which way he'll walk. I know the path is lit now. And I know this. Love without lines isn't love. It's permission. I'm done giving permission to be hurt. If you needed someone my age to say it out loud so you could say it too, take this as your green light. Keep what you built. Set terms for access. Say no and mean it. The key stays with you. I slept through midnight for the first time in months. Not the anxious kind with hallway creaks and thermostat checks, but the kind you earn after a judge reads your life out loud and says, "Enough." Sunlight crossed my kitchen tile, and I touched the red folders on the shelf like a small prayer, then left them there. I didn't need paper in my hands to feel steady. I had it under my feet. Mrs. Ellis called at 8. "The review is set for 120 days, she said. "We'll monitor compliance." Compliance. Strange word for family, but the right one. 2 voicemails from Tyler waited. I made coffee before listening. The first was bargaining. "Mom, 500 hours is insane." The second had more air in it. "I'm sorry, please call me." I didn't. Not to punish him, so the order could do its work. At 10, I drove to the community center where the Aurora Senior Fund rents 3 rooms, a tiny office, a shared kitchen, and a multi-purpose space with faint basketball lines we call Court 2. Tyler walked in wearing a gray work shirt and a face that finally knew the difference between apology and permission. He looked at the sign-in sheet and picked up the pen. "We'll start you on prep and cleanup," I said. "If you're late, minutes don't count. If you're disrespectful, you lose the shift. If you disappear, Plan A triggers." "Yes, ma'am," he said, without sarcasm. I set him at the sink with lettuce and colanders. Rinsing isn't spiritual work, but it scrubs more than dirt. After an hour, Joseph handed him a crate of cans. "We alphabetize on Wednesdays," he said. "Keeps the mind honest." Paige didn't come that first week. She called about her apology video. It would be filmed, posted for 30 days, and reviewed by our board. "Can we turn off comments?" she asked. "No," I said. Week 2 was friction. Tyler arrived on time, but everything about him was late. His posture, his patience, his grasp of why anyone needs a class on POA traps. He wanted to solve people like equations. "Why doesn't she just sell the car?" he whispered, about a woman whose grandson pushed an insurance policy she didn't understand. "Because she still needs to get to her life," I said. If you've ever taught someone the difference between help and control, tell me the sentence that finally landed. Drop listen so the next person at midnight sees it. Plan B was a shape, not just hours. 12 weeks of financial literacy. Thursday nights. Tyler sat in a metal chair with a pencil he kept breaking and listened. Sometimes a line would land and change his shoulders. "Debt is a story you tell your future without asking its consent," the instructor said. Tyler wrote it down. Paige recorded her apology under a folding backdrop. She looked into the lens and said what needed saying, that she slapped me, lied about my confusion, and helped plan access to property that wasn't hers. She didn't cry. I didn't need tears. Consequences were the point. Comments rolled in. Kind, cruel, and everything between. I read enough to feel the world and close the tab. Each Friday, we mailed the court copies of ours, class attendance, and the apology link. Between shifts, I updated my own house. I signed the pour-over will revisions, added language about the fund's purpose, and changed my emergency contact from Tyler to Joseph with Mrs. Ellis as alternate. It felt like betrayal until it felt like oxygen. I called the bank to pin permanent notes, no information without counsel, no HELOC inquiries acknowledged, fraud alerts on voice print required. I taped a copy of the court order inside my kitchen cabinet. Courage is sometimes a single page within reach. My favorite day came with a knock. Margaret, 74, small in shoulders and large in eyes, carried a manila envelope like it might run. Her son had borrowed her car and sold it, then asked her to sign a paper to fix the title. She didn't. She brought it to us. We sat at a card table and walked through our 5 steps: report the sale, flag the title, freeze the credit, call legal aid, and never sign a loan. She worried that made her unloving. I told her what I was finally learning. Love that never says no is a map to nowhere. If you've ever had to choose between being loved and being safe, comment safe. Someone will read it and remember their own keys. Tyler mopped that day. He listened without inserting himself. After Margaret left, he asked, "Was I like that?" "Worse," I said, "because you knew me." We had small wars. He missed a Saturday because a friend had tickets. We didn't count the hours. He tried to deliver hot trays bare-handed. He learned the meaning of hot. He pre-filled a rental application for a man who needed help, not answers borrowed from someone else's mouth. I handed the pen back to its owner. Tyler looked at the lock he'd installed and nodded. Meanwhile, Paige sent receipts for counseling and asked if she could sponsor class fees anonymously. I said yes. That didn't erase the slap. It showed she understood the cost of her hand. The review date sat on my calendar like a fixed star. Day 98. Tyler had 412 hours. Day 110. He had 481. The last 19 mattered more than the first 100. He arrived early, scrubbed pans without commentary, stayed late, and signed his name in careful block letters. On the 119th day, he brought coffee, not as a bribe, as a peace offering to a room he'd learned inside. He set the cup by my elbow. "Thank you for not making it easy." "Thank you for not asking me to," I said. "Not a Hallmark moment. Compost, where things grow." Review day. We returned to court with timesheets, certificates, the apology link, and a letter from the custodian about Tyler's habit of straightening chairs after everyone left. The judge read and looked at my son. "Do you understand why the terms existed?" she asked. "Yes, Your Honor," he said. "Because love without lines isn't love. It's permission. Plan B satisfied," she said. "Completion recognized. No contact expires as scheduled unless extended. Allegations about capacity are put to bed." Educated is an expensive word. Tyler paid with hours, Paige with truth on tape. I paid with a version of motherhood that needed to retire. We walked out under a sky that couldn't decide if it was spring. "On the steps," Tyler said, "I know forgiveness isn't a button. I won't push it." I told him I'd have coffee, with Mrs. Ellis present. No keys, no spare fobs, no emergency envelopes that turn holidays into audits. I would sit in therapy once to map the shape of what broke and then decide if I could return. Boundaries aren't punishments. They're fences to keep the goats out of the tomatoes. That afternoon, Margaret came back with a binder like mine. The DMV had flagged the title. Legal aid sent letters. Her son stopped texting when the counselor joined the call. She bought a used Civic with money she controlled and brought me a photo. Her new keys and a smile that didn't apologize. I pinned it to our corkboard. Home felt new in small ways. I replaced chipped mugs with a thrifted set that matched, not because matching matters, but because every cracked cup carried an old story about scarcity. 12 sound cups said, "Enough." I changed my emergency list again, added Margaret under "Call if you need proof we can do hard things." I moved the red folders to a firebox and left a single page on the fridge. The 5 steps we teach everyone. A house needs reminders as much as locks. If you're still here, give someone one line you learned too late, the thing you'd whisper to your past self on a day like mine. Put it below so a stranger at 2 a.m. stands up straighter. Forgiveness is a door. It opens when the work is done. If you still want the room on the other side, I don't know yet. The hallway is well lit now. And I know this. The keys stay on my hook. Not because I'm hard, because I'm finally home. That night, I slept again. In the morning, I watered the basil. It smelled like a new room. I hummed without noticing. It wasn't a hymn. It was the sound people make when they find their house again, not just the one with walls, the one behind the ribs. When the phone lit with a number I recognized, I let it go to voicemail, poured coffee, and checked the corkboard. Margaret's photo caught the light. Tyler's timesheet was filed. Paige's link printed clean. The world was still itself. My side of it felt steady for once. I washed the cup and breathed. By the time the court's review date passed, the house finally felt quiet in the right way. I could hear the kettle before it whistled. Tyler finished his hours. Paige kept her apology up, and the Aurora Senior Fund calendar was full. Nothing about this was perfect, but it was sturdy. People ask what I would tell the me from 6 months ago. I'd say, keep your receipts, keep your keys, and keep your name. When love starts sounding like access, pause. When help needs a signature, you don't understand. Pause longer. Here's what I want you to take with you tonight. Put your home in a structure that proves ownership in ink, not volume. Turn off guarantees you can't stomach. Freeze credit before anyone shops options in your name. Document harm even when it feels small. And if family turns your life into business, answer with boundaries you can enforce. I still don't know where my relationship with Tyler will land. Forgiveness isn't a light switch for me. It's a hallway with working bulbs and a latch on the door. What I know is this. I am done underwriting my own disrespect. My house is my house. My days are mine. If any part of my story kept you company, do something with it. Comment one word you need this week, boundary, safe, or guard, and say why. Like this video so it finds someone else at the exact midnight they need. And subscribe if you want more than drama. Subscribe if you want tools. On this channel, every revenge story becomes a recovery plan. You'll get step-by-step checklists, real receipts, and a steady voice that won't call you crazy when you're simply being cornered. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, and come back whenever you need courage in writing. I'm here, always.